everyone, and welcome to another episode of Just Us Dads. This is the Dadversation. If it's your first time here, this is the podcast that usually 98% of the time brings three dads. Today it's a little bit different. You don't have to adjust your screens. That is a woman on a dad's program. And it doesn't happen always, but when it does happen, it's for a good reason, and it's because there's a lot of value. So we're happy to have Johanne Vachon. We're going to get to what she does, why she's here. We're keeping true to the promise we made to bring all of you value in the quest that we took on to lose weight, to live better and healthier lives. By the way, Joanne, I'm winning that competition, regardless of what Chris may say. George isn't here. He's embarrassed because he's already lost. So we don't know where George is. No, he's working. He's working like a madman, George. So couldn't be here. So we're happy to have Joanne. Welcome to the program, Joanne.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm very impressed with you, gentlemen.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. It's all the weight loss, huh?
I can hardly recognize you. Just your voice I recognize.
Just the voice. No, it's true. Look, Joanne, I met Joanne a few years back, and she was the first I'll say the encyclopedia of nutrition and weight loss. She gave me the first steps. So I lost my first 40, 50 pounds with Joanne, actually. Wow. It was yeah.
So let's start there, Joanne. Give us that elevator pitch. You're a nutrition specialist. We're going to get to know you because it's the first time I meet you, dietitian. Tell everyone a little bit about you, what you do, or what you've done for all these years.
Well, since 1986, actually, we follow patients through their weight loss quest. Some people come to us willingly. Others come forced by their doctors, their wives, their husbands, their kids. Yeah. But the name of the clinic is à la carte, meaning that we try to fit our approach to the needs of the person in front of us. So you don't like carrots, nobody's going to force you to eat carrots. You don't exercise so much, nobody's going to impose it right off the bat. We're trying to understand what the hurdles are in your way to fulfill all these promises of health and well-being and weight loss. It's a subject that is not easy. It's simple, like just put less in your plate, and so complicated at the same time. So it's a challenge on a daily basis. It's fun because it's people are getting better. They're willing to not dwell with their disease. They want to change. They want to take less meds. All good stuff, very motivating.
There's this trend that we're seeing, and I think social media has a lot to do with that, in the sense that it's constantly in your face, right? There's all these quote unquote influencers, and here in Quebec, we can't really use that word anymore after what we saw over the holidays. But there are a lot of people that are promoting their businesses and their lifestyle, and they're looking good. And on that sense, it's good. But at the same time, it also feels that there's way more people living their lives as obese. I think the stats, even in Canada and obviously in the US, have demonstrated that the obesity rate is climbing, where roles such as yours become increasingly more important. The question I had, first of all, have you experienced this kind of transition in people's mentality into coming to you now, the last, let's say, 10 years? And secondly, I mean, in the 80s, and maybe I'm not aware, but it feels as though people weren't really open to seeing a dietitian or a nutritionist. Was it a big thing in the 80s to consult professionals such as yourself?
Statistically, Canadians and Quebecers are more likely to consult. On average, when people have less weight to lose, they consult more than the patients that have more weight to lose, bizarrely.
Okay. Wow.
It also there's a trend now that there's no stigma associated with it. Definitely, in the 80s, maybe nobody would have liked us on our Facebook page because it wasn't something maybe that they spoke about, but that's part of an openness that we see now on many other topics. So it's a trend, but there's still a lot of stigma associated with people that are carrying excess weight. Often they're perceived as lazy, unproductive, sloths. So that has to change. There's still a way to go on that subject. Mm-hmm. I would say that the most disturbing thing that I've seen through the years I've been doing this is mothers that were consulting are now bringing their children with cholesterol elevated, with limit diabetes issues that a 59-year-old man that's never gotten off his couch would have.
Wow.
Now we're seeing children that are 10, 12 with difficulties that are basically need to be medicated because the cholesterol would be too elevated.
And this is definitely not something that you used to see in the 80s or 90s.
No. Rarely.
It was the exceptional kid.
Exactly.
that would sit on the TV and
why?
eat.
Why do you think that is? What changed? What changed in our society, or what changed in our lifestyle? What was that marker that you believe kind of started this change?
There's always multifactorial. Some people have horrible genes. So everything is harder for them. So if their parents are diabetics, if their grandparents were, they have less ease at generating weight loss than somebody that would not have that baggage of genetics. It's not a roadblock or the Trump wall of obstacles, but it needs. These people need to be working harder. The treatment needs to be a little longer for them to achieve the same result as people that wouldn't have that diabetic baggage. There's also maybe a societal issue with parents now that have difficulty saying no to their children. So, without understanding the consequences, they allow the children maybe, or they provide the children with different foods all the time that may not be so appropriate.
Right.
Often.
And when they do say yes, it's something bad, right?
Well, I don't particularly like the word bad. But because I don't believe that foods are good nor bad, but if you let your child cross the street on the red light because they're having a tantrum that they want to cross on the red light, I don't think you will, or at least I hope not.
Yeah.
but saying no to a child, or saying this is enough, or we're having chips on movie night, things that are not, they can't be part of their daily menu. Somehow a parent needs to step in and say, this is what's being bought and this is what's being eaten at the table and during snacks. absenteeism also of the parents. The parents are busy. The kids are in daycare. They're eating late. They're not eating at regular intervals. The parents have very little time to cook. Often meals are fast, and the content, not the quality of the food, but in that it's food that's hastily prepared often is very, very high in carbohydrates. So we're eating a lot of rice, we're eating a lot of bread, we're eating too much pasta, possibly, because at short term it serves a purpose. The kid that's hungry coming in from school, that is still waiting for dinner, and it's 6:30, is way past being able to limit quantities. So we have difficulties as adults with not having regular meals and skipping meals. With children, it's even more acute.
Right.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you're mentioning this, because we had this actually same conversation last episode where we're saying how parents today are living a much different lifestyle than our parents, for example, back in the 80s, where, there wasn't that much focus on, succeeding in their business or in their work or advancing. Like, things seem to be so much more clockwork, where, at 3:00 there was someone home to take the kids in, food was being cooked, like everything seemed to be super organized. Whereas today, and I look at our generation, which we have kids now, we're living much busier lifestyles than our parents were. And sometimes the easy solution is like, oh God, I'm not going to go home and cook now, order a pizza, or I'm going to stop in real quick and get something, whatever, to bring home and eat. And I feel like that is becoming much more of a reality. And it directly affects, obviously, the children.
So it's also, it is in a way like the quality of food, right? More processed, you said, more higher in sugar, maybe higher in fat, maybe higher in sodium. So once you have it once in a while, it's fine. But once you make a habit of having processed all the time, 3 times a day, I think that could be, and also I think we didn't mention also the lack of activity, right? I think activity has gone really down, especially with the iPads and the phones.
Yes. COVID helping in that sense as well. Wow.
Yeah.
But it's they're all interconnected. If you exercise less, those serotonins have not been released. Your stress level is higher. Possibly your anxiety level is higher. So it brings you to a place where sometimes you need to compensate, and having too much food in absence of hunger often is related very much to the absence of exercise. So why do we overeat when we're not hungry? It's
good question. That's a good question.
Have you slept well? Was your last meal 7 hours ago? What did this last meal, even if it was a few hours ago, on clockwork, did it have substance? Did it have some protein? Did it have some fat? Did it have some carbs? Did it have too much carbs? Have you had fluids? Did you not sleep at all last night because your kid was up and you're ravenous all day? Very much related. Absence of sleep is a powerful trigger for high carbohydrate foods. They give us that boost short term, and then possibly we feel guilty about it. But and then we overeat because we're feeling guilty that we overate. But a vicious cycle
that I've been in my life about a few thousand times. A few thousand.
Yeah. Is it possible to make this go away completely? Possibly not, in the sense that sometimes food is a very acceptable kind of crutch, kind of compensation. It's socially very acceptable. Other excesses are less, but somehow I believe, and I know, and research shows it a little bit, like smokers rarely stop at their first attempt at stopping tabagisme.
Smoking.
Yeah. So the success rate increases with the number of attempts. So don't forget,
it took me 4 times to quit smoking. So dead on.
Bravo.
But see, this is interesting that you're bringing this up on why it's still ongoing. And I'm thinking, is there a part of this that is maybe lacking in our education? I mean, I remember in school learning the food groups, but I mean, it wasn't something that was constantly kind of in our face, where, like to make us aware about how important healthy eating should be in our lives. It was only later on, like I think it's only recently, that the government kind of woke up to make changes in the schools where, there's no more vending machines, or, there's no more chips or fast food kind of stuff like that being served in the cafeterias. This is very recent.
Yes.
So I'm just thinking, how much more work is there left to do in terms of educating the youngsters about living better and healthier lives?
Well, children usually are, they become disciples at something when you teach it young, grade schools, even in certain daycares. They're quite able to convince and to show the child and expose the child to different foods. But I would say that education is a definite part of it. As we get past the teenage years, even though many of us have the education and the knowledge that these foods are preferable for us as opposed to these that are less, why do we binge? Why do we eat certain foods? Why do we avoid exercise when we know that a little bit like, how do you convince somebody to have a COVID vaccine when they don't want to?
Right.
Is it lack of information? We've been bombarded in the last 2 years with how imperative it is that we're all vaccinated. How do you reach this last person that resists, and why do they resist? Because I don't think that some people may have an issue with the vaccine, and maybe a not so rational issue with the vaccine, but many see it as a legitimate disadvantage. It's our job as caregivers and healthcare workers to understand why they don't want. So the food, our relationship with food is very, very similar. I don't have too many people in my office that say that don't know that eating certain foods is less good for them. But you have to understand. You don't have to understand, but to acknowledge that you could be extremely obese and eat perfectly good food all the time. Never eat the bad foods that most people consider bad. It's a budget. If you're eating too many calories and you're not expending them, whether it's 1,000-grain bread, the best menu cooked by the best cook and the greatest ingredients. If you eat too much of it, unfortunately, it has a consequence.
Right.
Yeah, this makes me think of two things, and it leads me into, because we kind of spoke of demographic, and I'm going to make a blunt assumption, and I might be wrong. I think I'm right, but if I am right, I want you to explain why. We're a dad show, right? So we kind of discuss man things and how men think and what men like, what men don't like. I tend to think, or at least assume, that in your profession and what you do, you get to see more women than men. And I don't think it's because there's less, I think there's more obese men than obese women. I just find they're more open and they'll come to you. The man will, just like he won't go see a doctor, it's going to take a lot for him to come see a nutritionist on his health. Like, does that ring true?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There are many reasons. It's typically, I guess there was a pre-COVID and a post-COVID, but before we were, you had to wear a suit. You had to, be surrounded by your clients and your colleagues, and the male attire has a ability to cover maybe more
more forgiving.
Yes, more forgiving. You're right. So for many reasons, women have had maybe more pressure from society, from historically, the trends in fashion, also stuff that they impose on themselves. Men have a tendency to less consider their body as areas. It's very rare that men come to me and say, "Oh, I don't like my thighs. I don't like my arms." As is, I don't feel good. We need to do something about it, and or my doctor sent me. So. Is it changing? Is there a reverse trend in now men being more concerned just aesthetically or feeling more pressure? Possibly, but it's light years difference between the motivations of women and men.
Yeah, and I think men will also tend to try and resolve their issues by themselves or at the gym. It's like the gym is everything. They'll go to the gym for like 3 months, then quit, but at least they tried it.
Yes. Well, if you have the ability to be at the gym for 8 hours a day, it can generate weight loss.
Yeah.
Most people that have day jobs can hardly generate substantial weight loss from solely in the gym.
It's very difficult. In fact, we had another doctor a couple actually just before the holidays, I think, that runs the Fit Father project. It's
yes.
And he said the same thing. He goes, listen, if you're going to the gym expecting to lose the calories, you're wasting your time. You lose your calories by watching what you eat, and you exercise to keep your body healthy. That's the balance.
But if you're Hollywood star and you have the best of trainers and all the time in the world, possibly you end up logging so many hours in your day that it'll generate some weight loss. A kilo of fat is worth 7,700 calories. So a fantastic workout for a man that's 1.7 meters, 1.8 meters, 100 kilos maybe, is going to generate 800 calories of weight of caloric loss in that 3/4 an hour at the gym. You need to go, like clockwork, minimum 7-10 times in the week to be able to generate that 1 kilo. And the worst thing is that people say, well, I went to the gym 3 times. It's not working. Obviously, let me abandon the gym.
Yeah.
Well, the gym does wonderful things, like we spoke about before, stress release, better sleep, more muscle tone, less anxiety. But if you're adding up your calories, adding up the credits that the gym will make, and then you come out and you have a liquid nutrition shake for 700 calories.
You're even.
Let me just jump in here.
Yeah.
Let me jump in here. My engineering mind went a little like this. I just want to, for the listeners, because she went metric on us. So I just want to say that one kilo is 2.2 pounds and 1 meter is 3.28 feet. Because a lot of people think in terms of feet and inches and then in weight in pounds. So I just wanted to put that. And since we're talking about calories, Johanne, I remember you guys had a very, very interesting way. So you did count calories, but not really in calorie counting. You had a nice system with the circles and the portions, right?
Yeah.
I found that very neat. You want to elaborate on that a little bit? I found because a lot of people hate counting, and you remove the counting out of the equation, but without forgetting that it counts.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, roughly, our calories need to be, because there are three groups of calories that exist: lipids, fats, carbohydrate calories, and protein. Alcohol is another source of an exponential source of calories, possibly, but it has no nutrition, so it has no vitamin sources, so it's not considered. It's not a nutritious beverage, let's say.
So it makes you fat. It makes you happy, but that's it. No nutrition. No nutrition.
Value. I just said it didn't have caloric value.
All right. Good. You're right.
That's it. But that's another a whole other show, maybe. But again, alcohol is not to be removed from somebody's life. It's a budget. So if you say, well, I decide to have a glass of wine, maybe we can shave off a slice of bread and it'll be the same thing. But back to where we were previously, we were talking about the
macros.
Yes. So taking your calculator and adding up your calories is virtually impossible. If you buy a super loaf of bread from your artisanal bakery down the street, it's virtually impossible for you to know that the middle slice that's this big as opposed to the first slice has 454 calories. So sometimes it becomes laborious and it becomes annoying. And does it give results? Yes and no. You need to be able to know that you need a certain quality of foods. So this balance between the carbs, the protein, and the fats is very important. And it's it needs to be adjusted for each person as well. How much exercise would you be doing right now, Chris, in a week, let's say?
Per day?
Or in a week's time? Or
right now, I'm very serious. So I do about an hour, half a day.
Okay. So if eventually...
That's why you're losing, George. That's why you're losing. Sorry, go ahead, Johanne.
Nobody's losing here. Everybody's winning.
Yeah, we're all winning. We're all winning. It's true.
But so if you decide to skip a day, then officially your food intake needs to be adjusted because what you were expending at the gym it can't be factored in that day. But on a general rule, people have a tendency to have the same routine. So if there's nothing out of the ordinary in their lives, setting a a goal of so many calories, and these calories need to be allotted. Typically, it's approximately 30% of each food group, and adding them up again doesn't give you the hint that they need to be positioned, these foods, in specific times during the day. If you're having beautiful vegetables for lunch, a beautiful slice of bread, whole wheat bread in the morning, and you have your beautiful piece of salmon for the evening, you've spent the whole day with the perfect amount of calories ingested. But I would think that you feel like you want to kill somebody by the time maybe 10-15 comes, because the quality of the calories wasn't well positioned. Protein is like it's like a log. If you just put fire in the wood, if you just put paper, and when you start the fire, you're going to have a beautiful flame, but it's going to last very little. Very little. So positioning some protein calories at regular intervals during the day is more important almost than spending your time with your calculator and adding up the calories, because 4 ounces, about 125 grams of meat, for example, or a cup of legumes is exactly the amount that you would typically need for lunch and dinner. So it doesn't need that much work to figure out that this is a cup of lentils, for example.
Yeah. But that was the most interesting part, because instead of sitting there and counting everything in terms of calories, you had the portions. So, I had 3 circles or 4 circles for my proteins. I had 5 circles for my fats. And then it's like every time I had a portion of that, I would just remove that circle. And I knew I had 3 circles left. And it was very neat. I found it a very unique way of doing things, because it's true. Not everyone has a scale. Not everyone is going to sit there in 3 days. 3 times a day and measure everything. And sometimes you don't know. Like when my mom cooks, because she cooks amazing food, I can never tell unless it comes from a package and I know exactly what the calories are. I don't know what she put when she made a stew. You know what I mean? I could go and tell her, what did you do? But you can never really know how many calories you're eating.
Yeah, right? But maybe we can talk about that.
Sure.
Once your mother serves you the stew, for example, okay, can you
like that?
Okay, but that's the point. If you look at how many cubes of meat are in there, okay, I'm gonna have 6, 7, okay, the main stuff. Do you know how many grams of fat that are in the sauce, but the obvious things that you have control over, that's a habit that if you take that, the rest of the stuff is negligible.
Yeah, except let me just say something, because sometimes I would ask her, like, how many tablespoons of oil did you put in there? And she'll lie to me. She'll tell me about 2. But when I saw her making it, I started doing this with the bottle for 4 seconds, So it wasn't 3 tablespoons,
It was a tablespoon. It was a spoon.
Cup.
It was a spoon.
Cup.
It was a big spoon they had back in the village.
Yeah, I know.
So Johanne, tell us. Let's say, for example, because like Chris said, it's a dad show. We're over 40 now, and it feels that in general, when married men hit that age,
things just start from now.
No. It shouldn't be downhill. And I know that it's not downhill, because there's so many examples of men that are 50, 60, 70, whatever, that look, top shape. and you look at them and you're like, wow, man, like, what do you, like my father-in-law, he's ripped. The guy trains every day and he's like 65 and it's like, God damn, man, don't come over the pool. You know? I can't be in the same pool with you and my kids at the same time. It's like, what's going on? So what's the best suggestion that you can give? Like, for example, you know, just to get, you know, the meal preparation, or just in general, like the mindset of how to prepare and how to eat, like, you know, in terms of portions, or like, what do we need to know? What's the most important thing to know for men, you know, that obviously are living much more sedentary lifestyles, and, you know, the working out kind of takes a sidestep, and you know what I mean? It's work, come home, chill, eat, bed, movie, Netflix or whatever. Like, this is pretty
beer,
much
chips, and go to bed.
Yeah, you know, like what do we need? Like, what's the most important thing? Like, how do we get our mind straight on kind of reigniting?
This is George. This is where you put the number of Maigrir à la carte.
Yeah.
One free consultation, and that's how you start.
Yeah, just give me a call. It's simple. Yeah.
Well, it is and it isn't. I would say not to skip the small stuff. The counting, the exactness, it's not going to be possible, and it's not necessary for anybody to succeed. Let's maybe just talk about meals. You know, I forget his first name there, but well, he was a physician, I think, Dr. Kellogg, the inventor of breakfast.
Okay.
He decided that he was going to promote his cereal by saying that breakfast was the most important meal of the day. It is and it isn't. It is and it isn't true, because all three meals are very important. Have you, George, ever skipped lunch?
Of course. I have had busy days where I haven't had breakfast, lunch, or dinner. It's like I spent the whole day like snacking on whatever, you know, and like you're like, what time is it? Shit, it's bedtime already. What did I eat today? Like, you don't even remember.
Exactly. So would you put leaded gas in your car ever? Would you do that?
I know.
When it doesn't take you know that the motor is gonna be shot. So paying attention to making sure that you have stuff that's available, that's there, that's not complicated. And you spoke about the olden days where things seem simpler. What did your grandmother serve as a Greek grandmother for breakfast? What did typically they ate? What?
This is very different, okay? Because I remember even when we were growing up, what my parents ate for breakfast, they never gave us, because either they knew that we weren't going to eat it, or they didn't want people outside knowing that that's what I gave my kid. I have never seen my father eat anything else for breakfast other than a piece of bread, olive oil, and a little bit of salt. That's his breakfast. It's been his breakfast for as long as I can remember. We sit down and he makes a toast, like his own bread. He makes his own bread. Okay. And he slices the bread, and that's his breakfast. He has a slice of bread, which is not like your regular toast slice. It's a home baked bread, right?
Okay.
Toasted.
No Greek yogurt. No little bit of cheese. No.
No, well, no. We have specialty. It has to come from the mountain in some remote area in Greece. It's a mountain tea that does magic. Apparently, every Greek house has it. But yeah, no. My father always had his toast, olive oil, a pinch of salt, and that's all he eats. Like, that's all I've seen him eat for breakfast, if he has breakfast. Other than that, it's coffee. Coffee, and they're out. I don't think I've seen my parents eat breakfast. Chris, I don't know about you, but rarely have I seen my parents actually sit down and have breakfast.
My dad has changed now, but for 30 years it was Greek coffee and cigarettes.
That was breakfast.
So that was no. That was a no. I know what you were going for, Joanne, and it's like it was definitely not Kellogg's Frosted Flakes. That's not what they ate.
No.
But yeah, I've seen him have the yogurt. I've seen him have the yogurt with some honey. Now he's more aware, so he's trying. So he'll have a piece of fruit. He's gonna have a piece of avocado. He's doing different things now.
Yeah.
So he came a long way from the coffee and cigarettes to like all this now. But
we used to have yogurt, but it's like, again, it was made at home. Like my mom makes yogurt.
Yeah, homemade Greek yogurt. Yeah.
So see, these are stuff that, and again, we spoke about this in another episode where there's this traditional aspect of what family used to be, like the cooking of a spinach pie, or like home cooked casserole that we don't do now. We don't know how. And we don't necessarily have the interest of learning either, which is sad because you lose a part of the culture, right? A good Greek home-cooked meal, you don't see that very often, or at least as often as we used to see it. It was on a daily basis. Every day there was a different home-cooked meal. In fact, there was so much as there was probably leftovers, but forget about the leftovers. We still have to cook something else. So there was always food available. It was always home-cooked. And there was never we never had junk food in my house. And I say this to a lot of people, and they don't believe that we never had Oreos at my house, or cook. Like those came after. Like when we went to high school and stuff, that's when they went and they thought that the dad's cookies was the healthier option than getting chocolate chip cookies or whatever. Like the Chips Ahoy or whatever.
But having something of substance shouldn't stop you from getting on time to school, to work. You comb your hair, you put your t-shirt on, you can have a small piece of cheese, you can have a little bit of tofu spread on a slice of bread. You can, even if it's store-bought or already for you, it's not that difficult on your way out to munch a little something. Mm-hmm. It's a great value. Kids are falling asleep in class. They haven't had breakfast for many reasons. Some of them because of lack of access to it. But many youngsters, teenagers, leave home with nothing. They're hypoglycemic. Their blood sugar is so low mid-morning. They're not learning anything.
Yeah. No, we always had breakfast. Like we had cereal. Actually, we had we always had cereal.
We were the guinea pigs of all that. We were the first kids that ate all that. Yeah.
But again, Chris, we were much more active than today's kids. So the cereal that you ate, by the time lunch came, you had already burned it.
Yeah. But don't forget, one thing that differentiates us from our parents is that's what I meant by the first generation. We were the first generation that ate the box stuff, the craft dinner, singles craft cheese, the box, the crackers, like everything that came in a box. Like we were the first, right? Yeah, much later. And the kids today have that when they're 3 and 4. I first had it when we're, like you said, in high school. It started for us.
Exactly.
So that's a big factor, I find, and it's quicker, and quick is not always good, right? I know you don't like good and bad, but quick is not always rich in nutrients.
But right? Joanne, let me ask you something, because you're mentioning about breakfast, and it's even if it's small, it's still very important. There's always a solution to get. How do you feel? Because right now, the last couple of years, the intermittent fasting kind of strategy has come into play. I've tried it, Chris. I do it now, and it's perfect for me. I'm never going to impose that on my kids, because there's no way that I can keep my kids fasting for 18 hours.
Good question. I was thinking the same thing. I wanted to ask you on that.
So where do you stand on that? Because as a nutritionist, like what's the philosophy now? Are you guys adopting that strategy, or are you still kind of sticking to what that balance your food throughout the day, morning, lunch, and night?
Typically, during the weight loss phase, is a little bit different than when you're trying to level your weight and maintain your weight. But I would say that some people have a natural ability to fast. Others are headachy. They start shaking. They have a difficulty physically with the absence of prolonged absence of food. It's definitely shown that our pancreas is kind of revved up and is more efficient, deals with our fat better, produces less insulin. Many benefits from the intermittent fasting, but you have to be able to tolerate it. You know, if it's intolerable and you're headachy and you're miserable, it's just not going to be sustainable, and It's not going to produce any results. And possibly you'll feel guilty because then you'll say, "Geez, everybody else is doing it. There must be something wrong with me." Well, no, that's the point. There's a solution for each individual and each how each individual reacts is proper, and I haven't seen ever somebody that wasn't able to lose weight. The strategy is for you to feel comfortable, to be energetic. Officially, we're supposed to be more energetic as we're using our own fat than when we're not. So that's a message, I think, for everyone. If you're feeling horrible during the weight loss phase, it's very important that something needs to be adjusted, because you don't need to be suffering. It may not be pleasant all the time. It may not be the food you want to eat. It may not be the quantity you want to eat. But if you're suffering, that's not a sign of weight loss.
Right.
Yeah. Hence a la carte, right? You guys are that's what it is. That's what very flexible to the individual needs. You adapt to the lifestyle. You have the equation, the biggest factor, which is like be in a caloric deficit in order to get some results, and everything else you kind of move around in the day and the activity per person and how they feel and what they like, what they tolerate, what they can't. That's what makes your system awesome. I think that's what it is. Very open and flexible.
Yeah. There've been so many trends, throughout the years. I mean, the diet industry has started about in 1930s or so with the affluent strata of the population, but I always cringe when I hear that there's a magical recipe, because it makes, if it doesn't work for you, it makes you feel like somehow it's a dire situation that nothing's going to make you succeed, and that's the last thing you want to communicate to someone.
I guess, Johanne, the most important thing from what you said is that you have to make sure that whatever you do, it's sustainable. And, we've all tried, the liquid diets, and I've tried all these other things. And at the end of the day, you lose a ton of weight. But here we are, playing the yo-yo game where it just keeps coming back because there's no sustainability. There's no consistent effort in, maybe counting your calories or making sure that your portions are right, and kind of, getting your mindset straight that this is how it has to be done from here on.
Main very big factor that doesn't bizarrely create much success is being a perfectionist.
All right.
I blew it. I had an extra toast today. I had a glass of wine. I knew it wasn't going to work. It's not for me. So these thoughts are very caloric. They lead to us overeating and not sticking to the main plan. You can change lanes sometimes. It doesn't mean that you're in the ditch and you're not heading the right way to your destination. So being overly perfectionist and demanding on yourself is a trait that doesn't serve most people.
Yeah.
So what's the best approach? What's the best approach in your opinion? Just go with the flow kind of thing?
Again, the regularity of your effort, and you mentioned before the sustainability of it has now with January. A lot of people had their resolutions, and their the peak at the gym, if it would have been open, would have been done now.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So the first 3 weeks, people go 4 times a week, and it's difficult. And is it necessary? Maybe not. If you wouldn't have imposed that rhythm, maybe you'd still be going.
Right.
It's a question of challenging yourself, and obviously, if you don't change anything in your daily routine, you'll definitely not see a change. You'll have the same result. But sustaining something that's sustainable, and somebody says, I'm shaving off a few slices of bread a day, keeping a teaspoon of sugar or of honey or of brown sugar out of 2 coffees a day is a few pounds a year.
Right. Yeah.
So it doesn't need to be black and white.
Right. Yeah, that's the focus. That's the the website is.
Our website is maigriralacarte.com.
Like one word. And what you guys do, you don't do the consultation obviously because of COVID, but you can take consultations through Zooms, right? And you can make your schedules and.
Yes. Patients are weighing themselves. I get to see their scale.
All
and
right.
They don't look even, so it's very interesting.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember you used to weigh me. You used to weigh me, take my blood pressure. And let me ask you, I remember a nice little piece of fat you had on your desk.
Yes.
Are you
still
serious?
have that? Yeah. Well, she would show what it was 2 pounds or 2 kilos, right? Was that 2 kilos? What was it?
It was actually half a kilo, the equivalent of 1 pound.
It was 1 pound of fat, what it looked like. And it was nice. I loved it. Every time I'd go there, I'd see it.
With fake veins in it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
It's like, this is what it looks like. Here you go. How many of these do you want to lose? You know?
That's so funny. We kept you on for way too long, Johanne. We're going to put all your details in the description. So for everyone watching or listening, read the description and reach out to Johanne if you need any help or if you need to consult or if you're lost and you don't know what to do and you need just someone to talk to and to see where that first step has to go and how to make that first step. Really appreciate the time that you took. We hate you a little bit for being in Florida, especially after what we're living through right now.
I think you did it on purpose. You're sending a cold front. They said tonight was a weather notice that the cold was coming from Canada. It's going to be.
Yeah, we probably did that. Yeah. I put that in motion 3 days ago.
You're powerful.
That's right.
Thank you.
Good to see you, Johanne. Good to see you.
Thank you,
congrats with everything with your family.
Be well.
And give me a shout when you're back in Montreal.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Take care, everyone. And we'll see you all on the next episode.